Welcome to my grandpa's train. Today's project is to get my number 290 running again. There's a few things wrong with it. One is the motor needs new brushes and a headlight. The tender needs the reverse fingers installed and a new wiring harness made to the engine. Also, need to clean the pickup wheels and adjust or maybe replace the link coupler. Let's begin. This shouldn't be too difficult, right? First, I'm going to disassemble the locomotive. Remember to first remove the brass tube from the smokestack. Okay, next I will install two brand new brushes and brush springs. That was easy. The tricky part is, now I have to make sense of the wires and reattach everything to the jack panel in the proper order. Here's what I did. It's actually not too difficult. This engine is a 4-wire, so 2 wires run to the field and 2 run to the brushes. Simply, the 2 brushes connect to the outside 2 pins, and the 2 wires for the field connect to the 2 middle pins. Also, the 2 wires to the headlight and smoke are tied in parallel to the outside pins. Let's see if I can remember my own advice. Maybe a little foreshadowing. I made a new wiring harness that comes from the tender's reverse unit. I'm using 4 colors that resemble the wiring in the diesel locomotives. The difference here is I'm using white for yellow. Hopefully, the new wires are soft enough to be flexible around corners on the track. I've moved on to working on the tender now. And I learned something at the hardware store. This reverser requires 3 screws to be installed, instead of the 2 tabs and single screw like most of them. So I have some original screws which are number 4 sheet metal screws and 1/4 inch long. The originals are hard to come by, and resellers often charge $1 a piece. I found this box of number 4 screws at the hardware store. Got 100 for $4. They are a perfect match thread-wise for the originals. I don't mind that they are silver since they are on the bottom of the tender, but it would be easy enough to paint them black. I fed the wiring harness through the hole in the tender and put a piece of heat shrink around to keep the wires in check. Before I can screw in the reverser, I'm going to install the fingerboards, and before I do that, I need to solder them. Here's what I learned about installing the new fingerboards. It turns out the new ones are almost as fragile as the originals. The board material is brittle, and if you jam them in place, they will shatter. The instructions say you don't have to bend these down, but you actually do because they often sit a ways off the drum. I think these are actually made in different sizes. These seem to be 1/16 inch too long to center on the drum. I had to rebend the scoop on one of them for it to line up. Also, when soldering, it can loosen up the rivets, which allows the fingers to wiggle around and not line up straight. Just another thing to be aware of. Okay, so remember earlier I said I should follow my own advice? Yeah, about that. So I said that the field wires get soldered to the middle pins on the jack panel. Well, somehow I managed to swap 1 brush and 1 field wire, and I didn't catch that because it worked just fine to run the engine in reverse, but when I cycled it to go forward, it shorted out. I corrected my mistake, and now it runs properly forwards and reverse. The reverser is a little sticky yet, but now I can put this together and test it on the tracks. Well, here's the Problem-O-Matic 290, and the engine runs great, but now the tender keeps falling off the tracks, and now I know why I put this in the box. Both trucks are bent and not sitting straight. Two of the axles are out of spec and literally falling off the rails. The screw holding on the drawbar is too short and is actually picking up the front truck of the tender. The wiring harness is too stiff and pushes the tender over when turning corners. The link coupler is stiff and likes to let go of cars behind. All these things are a problem for another day. Despite all that, let's see if I can manage to squeeze a few laps out of this. Here we go. Eventually, I will get the rest of these bugs worked out, but might not be till next year. I'm going to need to get parts from the train show next spring. I've got other projects coming up I need to get started next. So, if you did find this video helpful or entertaining, please let me know by leaving a thumbs up and a comment. Subscribe if you haven't. And, as always, and until next time, thank you for watching.